Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get into it.
The fight against drunk driving has been and remains one of the most important areas of road safety. The positive dynamics of such offenses and the disappointing statistics of accidents with serious consequences makes lawmakers toughen the penalties for drunk driving. But, as it often happens, good intentions do not always have exclusively positive consequences. It turned out that breathalyzers, devices for determining the amount of ethylene in the blood, are so sensitive that they react even when the driver has not consumed any alcohol. In this regard, many motorists have a question: which drinks should be considered dangerous if there is not the slightest desire to prove that you have not drunk anything forbidden? Today we will talk about liquids, around which there are many fictions concerning their ability to affect the readings of alcohol. Testers, Kefir, home/bottle Kvass, energy drinks. We will try to clarify where these rumors came from, how plausible they are, and whether they can be consumed before a trip and directly while driving. About the new law and breathalyzer. For a long time, until 2010, there was a law in Russia that allowed driving a motor vehicle with a blood alcohol level not exceeding 0.35 ppm. This, in general, was the threshold that allowed not to worry those drivers who really did not drink alcohol-containing beverages immediately before going on the road. Once that threshold was reduced to zero, the situation changed dramatically. There were frequent cases when the consumption of even overripe tangerine could affect the readings of the breathalyzer, causing its arrow to deviate from the zero mark, even slightly. And although from 2018 it was decided to raise the permissible norm to almost the previous value, 0.3 ppm, this does not guarantee that the law will not be changed in the future. But even such a figure, as it turns out, can be achieved as a result of consuming the most common products, though in very large quantities. That's why it's so important to know what exactly can affect the results of a test by a device that determines the amount of ES in exhaled air. Modern breathalyzers are characterized by a fairly high accuracy of measurements. The most advanced models show readings in increments of 0.01 ppm, which is 0.0045 g of pure alcohol per liter of blood. Such values can be obtained by consuming quite harmless drinks, for example, Kvass. In its production, alcohol is not used, but since the technology of production of the drink involves fermentation processes, some amount of ethanol is still contained in it. It turns out that the barrel and bottled drink have different indicators. If you drink a liter of bottled Kvass, you risk raising the ES level to 2 ppm. However, after just 5 minutes the test will show 0.1 ppm, which is quite a safe level. 10 minutes after drinking, the breathalyzer reading will be 0. Barrel Kvass is even more dangerous. Immediately after drinking 1 liter of the drink, the device will record 5 ppm, which after 5 minutes will decrease to 0.4 ppm. After 10 minutes, the breathalyzer will not show the presence of alcohol in the blood at all. What does this tell us? From a practical point of view, about the safety of drinking Kvass, because just 10 minutes is enough for no device to detect its content in the blood, let alone in the exhaled air. But theoretically, you can drink the same liter while driving a vehicle, and at that moment you can be stopped by a traffic police inspector. You do not need to panic in this case. Just pull a little time and ask to perform a second test. And if it turns out to be positive, you should insist on performing tests in stationary conditions. In this case, the chances of a positive test result are reduced to 0. Note that a homemade drink, prepared according to a recipe that involves the use of a large amount of yeast and glucose/sugar, can increase its strength to 8 to 9%. This is a lot. In the store product, this indicator is about 1 to 1.25%. So lovers of homemade Kvass, especially in summer, should not hurry to get behind the wheel. But if you do not consider it necessary to adhere to such recommendations and thus got caught, remember that the traffic policeman is limited in his actions at the legislative level. The tester used by the inspector to take the measurements must be certified, i.e., authorized for use in the territory of the Russian Federation, so you should pay attention to the specific model. It may come in handy. According to the law, testing for alcohol content in the driver's blood must be carried out in the presence of at least 2 witnesses. It is unlikely that at the moment of your stop there will be 2 more random people on duty near the traffic police officers. Again, according to the law, the measurement process must be recorded on a video camera, and if you do not notice a smartphone in the hands of the inspector, such measurements will be considered illegal. Whether you can drink store/homemade kvass while driving. In fact, commonplace products that have ES in their composition are not so few. Slightly fermented fruit juices, the whole range of fermented dairy products, rye bread, slightly rotten or simply overripe fruit, especially bananas, which ferment very quickly, chocolate, candies with liquor, poppy seed-filled pastries, sandwiches, black bread/sausage. Read also, how much paint is required to paint a car? Add to that some medications or oral freshening spray, and you realize that it turns out it's not all that simple with alcohol. However, it's all about the dosage. In most of the products mentioned above, the dosage is minuscule, and after a while the alcohol level becomes 0. But the fact remains that a traffic police officer may well stop a car whose driver chews the notorious sandwich and does not even realize that he is committing an illegal act. This is largely the reason why the 0 norm was abolished. Nevertheless, the driver should always remember that if the fact of alcohol in the blood will be proved, he faces a substantial fine or deprivation of the driver's license for up to 2 years. If such a fact is revealed again, the license can be taken away for 3 years. Refusal to undergo medical examination threatens to deprive the driver's license for 2 years. If you still haven't figured out for yourself whether a driver can drink kvass while driving, let's try to clarify this point using the example of homemade kvass and industrially produced kvass. The difference between them can reach impressive values, and factory kvass is produced according to established technology, and all its components are regulated by GOSTs, including the content of ethylene in the finished product. The latter indicator cannot exceed 2.6%, and the average values are in the corridor of 1 to 2%. The main ingredients in the production of this soft drink are water and sugar. The secondary ingredients are carbon dioxide and lactic acid formed by reaction with ethyl alcohol, the result of fermentation. If we proceed from simple mathematical calculations, then theoretically store kvass should not be dangerous from the driver's point of view. The human body circulates up to 5 liters of blood, so drinking 1 liter of kvass with an ethanol content of 2% should result in an alcohol increase of 0.4 ppm. However, such calculations do not agree with practice, which is caused by the physiology of alcohol distribution in the body, which we will discuss a little later. As for homemade kvass, the situation here is not so unambiguous, since the recipe for its production can vary greatly, even from case to case. This means that it will be quite difficult to determine the exact strength of the soft drink using a household alcoholometer. Electronic device, characterized by great accuracy, is expensive, so its purchase is justified only if you are engaged in the manufacture of kvass on a semi-industrial scale, or if you moonshiner. So whether you can drink while driving homemade kvass depends solely on the recipe. We have already noted that usually in this case sugar and yeast are not spared, and it is they that affect the fermentation process and the production of ethanol. Add to this malt, as well as berries and fruits used to give a unique, special flavor, and you get a drink, the use of which in appreciable quantities can really lead to temporary intoxication. So if you belong to the category of responsible drivers, you should understand why you should not drink kvass while driving. Even if you know that the content of ES in the blood will be 0 in 10 to 15 minutes, during this time period your reaction will be slower, as well as the speed of evaluation of the traffic situation. And this is a direct threat to all road users. So drinking a drink made not in factory conditions is always an increased risk, especially if you buy such kvass on hand. It is not known what components are included in its composition. We suspect that for many drivers the question of how much kvass you can drink while driving remains open and quite controversial. Especially for them, we will give a typical algorithm describing the average diagram of the time of ethyl alcohol decomposition in the body of an average Russian. So, the amount of ES in the blood depends on the time elapsed since drinking 1 liter of Kvass, as follows: immediately after drinking, 2.00 ppm, bottled drink, or 5.00 ppm, keg/homemade liquid. 5 minutes later, 0.10 ppm, bottled Kvass, and 0.40 ppm, keg or home-brewed liquor. After 10 minutes, 0.00 ppm for bottled drink, 0.10 ppm for cask Kvass. After 15 minutes, 0.00 ppm for homemade/barrel Kvass. Of course, the figures here are approximate, but on their basis you can already estimate when and how much you can consume this tasty drink if you plan to drive. Well, the popularity of Kvass in the expanses of our country cannot be doubted at all, because it is able to quench thirst in order of magnitude better than lauded sodas, Pepsi-Cola, and Coca-Cola, and the health benefits are out of the question. If about the latter in the network circulate the most incredible rumors, they say that they successfully wash toilets, and not only. Kvass has pronounced healing properties, having a beneficial effect on the work of the CCC, gastrointestinal tract, improving metabolism, improving mood. It is virtually absent components of non-natural origin, as well as various preservatives, stabilizers, dyes, and other nonsense. But in small quantities there are vitamins, especially groups B and E, and trace elements. And if it is Kvass, prepared at home using fruits, its benefits for the body will be even more tangible. Let's not forget about the tonic properties of a chilled drink, and its excellent taste. In general, the answer to the question, whether you can drink bottled and homemade Kvass while driving, can be considered positive, if it is not more than 0.5 liters. And this amount is quite enough for a single satisfaction of the body in the liquid in hot weather. Note that we are talking about drinking before the driver sits behind the wheel. During the trip, you can neither drink nor eat, because your hands and feet, as well as your brain, are busy driving, and any extraneous activity is inadmissible, as, for example, in talking on a cell phone. Unfortunately, most drivers ignore this rule, and it certainly affects the accident statistics. Kefir while driving. No less interesting is the question of whether you can drink kefir, sour milk, while driving. The fact is that fermented milk products also contain ES in their composition, and its share can vary from 0.1% to 0.6%. If we compare it with Kvass, these are much safer indicators. The time diagram for half a liter of kefir looks much better. Immediately after consumption, 0.001 ppm, in 5 minutes traces of alcohol in the blood are not observed even with the use of ultra-precise equipment. But Kvass is quite comparable to Kvass in terms of ethanol content. This fermented milk product, made from mare's milk, contains 1.6% alcohol. This means that immediately after drinking the liquid, the breathalyzer will record a value of 1.6 ppm. After 5 minutes, this indicator will decrease to 0.2 ppm and will become 0 after 10 minutes. Read also, non-alcoholic beer and its effect on the driver. Is it possible to drink energy drinks while driving? A lot of myths, and sometimes diametrically opposed, are associated with the use of energy drinks that have recently enjoyed great popularity among drivers. They are especially loved by truckers, for whom the fight against fatigue and sleepiness is extremely important. Energizers are indeed able to raise the tone for a while, but recently there are more and more publications that talk about the health hazards of these drinks. Many physicians tend to classify energy drinks as addictive substances, i.e., they have a weakly pronounced narcotic effect. This is facilitated by the presence of caffeine in the composition of any energy drink, which has a negative effect on the body, increasing HR. In most people, this state is accompanied by the disappearance of sleepiness, but some may feel the exact opposite emotions. If you add to this the emerging feeling of anxiety, fear, you can understand how incompatible with driving such a state. And yet, we are interested in another question. Is it possible to drink energy drinks while driving a car? Here it should be clearly understood that there are two varieties, non-alcoholic and low-alcoholic. The latter, of course, should not be consumed categorically, because in combination with the above symptoms you get a really rattling mixture that turns driving into an extremely dangerous occupation for others. As for non-alcoholic energy drinks, there are no substances containing ethanol in their composition. Typical ingredients of energy drinks are caffeine, glucose/sugar, taurine, glucuronolactone, theobromine, L-carnitine, B vitamins, ginseng. So from the point of view of influence on the breathalyzer, energy drinks are quite safe. Finally, I would like to note that the current Russian standards for ethanol content in the blood of drivers are somewhere in the middle by European standards. A number of countries have a zero standard, which we had until 2013: Albania, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. Scandinavia, Ukraine, Estonia are more responsible in their approach to this issue. More liberal norms, up to 0.5 ppm, apply in most of the Old World countries, and in Great Britain and dwarf states, Liechtenstein, San Marino, Luxembourg, you can drive without fear of penalties and with up to 0.8 ppm of alcohol in your blood. The same regulations apply in the USA and Canada. But in Asian countries, the attitude to alcohol is intolerant. In Japan, for example, any deviation from zero will be considered a violation. In conclusion, understanding the effects of Kvass, Kefir, and energy drinks on drivers is crucial for ensuring road safety. While Kvass and Kefir can provide hydration and beneficial probiotics, they may also lead to drowsiness in some individuals. On the other hand, energy drinks, despite their stimulating effects, can cause increased heart rates and anxiety, potentially impairing driving performance. It is essential for drivers to be aware of how these beverages can affect their concentration and reaction times. Making informed choices about what to consume before getting behind the wheel can significantly contribute to safer driving experiences. For everyone on the road,